When I was cleaning my husband's garage, I found a pack of condoms in the drawer. I didn't say anything, just silently pierced them with a pin. What happened 9 months later forced her husband to flee the city. And before we go any further, write in the comments what city you are looking from and how old you are. The end of April turned out to be unusually warm, even hot for our provincial town. I threw open the windows in Nastasia's house, letting the spring wind disperse the stagnant air of the winter. Smelled young foliage and bird cherry, which bloomed exuberantly in our yard. The neighbors' cats were warming themselves on the fence, and the women of Nyrons. The chickens were busily swarming in the garden, looking for the first worms. Vasily, my husband, already 23 years old, went fishing with colleagues to the Volga for 2 days. Tanya, don't miss me, he said, throwing his battered fishing box into the trunk, and his favorite thermos with tea, the same one that I gave him for his silver wedding. Thermos with a crack on the lid. But Vasya did not part with him, he said, happy. I just nodded. For so many years of marriage, I got used to his absences. I used to be jealous, made scenes, and now I just watched his old nine, hiding around the bend and thinking about urgent matters. I decided not to waste time and do general cleaning. I washed the windows with ammonia and vinegar. That's what my mother taught. I cleaned the floors until I creaked, polished the old furniture to a shine, dismantled the cabinets, shook it up. Winter clothes and put them in the mezzanine until next winter. I cleaned the bathtub, kitchen stove, and sink to a shine. Hands. They habitually did their job, and their thoughts wandered somewhere far away. I remembered my youth, how I met Vasya at dancing in the Park of Culture, how he accompanied me home, awkwardly holding his hand, how Rabka kissed me on the third date and immediately proposed. Our children have long since sprung out of their parents' nest. Mishka is in St. Petersburg. He works as a programmer. He married to a girl from Belarus. She is good, kind, only we rarely see each other. Olenochka is married in a neighboring city, teaches at a music school. My granddaughter is already 3 years old. Vasil spilled. The same stubborn gray eyes and dimples on the cheeks. By lunchtime, I coped with the main cleaning, sat down to rest, drink tea with bagels. Outside the window, the neighbor Zenaida Petrovna was hanging up laundry, loudly discussing the last news. Someone's cow calved, and the chairman's daughter returned from the capital. It didn't take root there, you see. In our town, everything is in full view. Everyone knows everything about everyone. After finishing my tea, I decided to take up the garage. Vasily never let me clean up there. It's not a woman's business, he said, frowning and shaking his head as I stammered about. Cleaning. I have everything laid out there as it should be. But what is it there? Tools mixed with fishing tackle, 10-year-old paint cans, car parts, old tires, some wires, boxes with junk. In general, a mess, as it is. All this stuff has been collecting dust for years, and today I decided, enough. I put on an old flowered dressing gown, faded from. Numerous washes, tied a washed scarf on her head, and set to work. Vacuumed old dust. She wiped the rags and the workbench, wiped the shelves, threw the obvious junk into large garbage bags in the far corner. Behind an old bicycle, I found a stash, a bottle of Armenian cognac, carefully hidden behind the tires. She grinned, but did not touch her. Let him think that I did not find it. Everyone should have their own little secrets. Small. Cobwebs stuck to my hair, dust clogged my nose, but I worked with a kind of fierceness, as if I was sweeping it out. Everything that is unnecessary and obsolete from life. On the top shelf of the iron locker, where Vasya kept all sorts of small things, I saw. A wooden box, you know, the Soviet one for tools with peeling green paint and a metal handle. My father used it, may he rest in peace. I reached out and took it off. Heavy. I thought maybe there are some rare nails or bolts that are in short supply. My Vasily, a big fan of bartering something in garages, has collected a whole warehouse over the years. I put the box on the workbench, brushed the dust off the lid, and opened it. There were some papers on top, old receipts, instructions for household appliances, which we have not had for a long time. Mechanically, she pushed them away and between the screwdriver and the yellowed. With a plastic pen and skeins of multicolored wire, 3 packs of condoms, new, bright, with foreign inscriptions. Expensive ones, apparently, are not those that are sold in every pharmacy. In. Something broke off and went down to the stomach. The air suddenly became thick and heavy, and it became difficult to breathe. She slowly sank down on an old stool with shabby legs, not letting go of the drawer. One thought was spinning in my head. Why does he need them? Vasily and I have not been using protection for 5 years, and our intimacy has become so rare and habitual. Once a month, no more than that. What kind of condoms are there? And in the pharmacy, he is always embarrassed. He asks me to buy women's things, and here are bright packages of 30 pieces at least. I looked at these packages, and a lump came to the throat. Another woman stood before my eyes, young, probably with smooth skin and no stretch marks from childbirth, with a toned body, and not with a glyph on her hips, like mine, without. Strained hands, with rough skin and eternal fatigue in their eyes. I imagined how Vasya hugged her, whispered affectionate, the same words that he once said to me, calling me a fish and a swallow. For some reason, tears did not come. Only my temples were pounding, and my heart was pounding somewhere in my throat, instead of bitterness and resentment inside. A cold, heavy wave was rising. For 23 years, I pounded in my temples. 23 years of life. I remembered how I refused to go to graduate school. For the sake of his career. Someone had to sit with the children. How I washed his shirts and cooked borscht. How she nursed her when. I caught pneumonia, ran with a thermometer and put compresses. How I did not sleep at night when the children were sick and he snored next to me. As she grew old, imperceptibly for herself in endless worries. About the family. Outside the window, I heard the noise of a car approaching, and I shuddered. But it was not Vasya, but a neighbor, Uncle Kolya, who returned from work in his old Moskvich. The kitchen clock struck 4. Neighbor Zinaida Petrovna in the yard was still hanging laundry, now sheets. Large, white, boiled, how she loves. Life went on as usual, and I sat in a dusty garage with other people's condoms in my hands and felt how my life is falling apart. Or maybe these are long-standing reserves. A saving thought flashed through my mind. Maybe he bought them along, time ago. When we did, and then I forgot. But she immediately dismissed this version. The packages were new, dust-free, bright, and there was a barcode on them. The same as on modern goods and not as before. They don't know how much time passed before I woke up from torpor. The sun was already going down, breaking through the cloudy glass of the garage window. A red beam glided over the workbench, highlighting every scratch, every speck of dust. The phone was ringing in the house, old disc with sharp. Call. Probably, my mother called, asked if Vasya and I would come to her village or Lenka for the May holidays, to boast of the new successes of Masha, our granddaughter. I mechanically put the condoms back in the drawer, covered them, papers as it was, and suddenly stopped. In the bag that I brought with me for small garbage, there was my sewing box tin with an image of Kremlin still left from my grandmother. I specially took it to hem the curtains in the garage. They were completely frayed from the bottom. I took out a box. She opened and took out a small pin with a yellow plastic head. I looked at it, turned it in my fingers. A pin like a pin is the usual one I use when I roll up jars of cucumbers. I pierce the lids so that they seal better, and then it dawned on me. Slowly, as if in a dream, I returned to the drawer, took out the condoms and methodically, one by one, the other pierced all 3 packages several times each, carefully, so that it is not noticeable, not in the center, but on the side, where you can't see. I lifted them into the light, seemingly imperceptibly. I folded everything as it was and put the box back in its place. My hands did not tremble. Inside there was emptiness and some kind of cold calm. Not anger, no, something else. It was as if I was looking at myself from the outside and wondering at my own actions, but at the same time, I felt that I was doing the right thing. When I was done with the garage, I locked it, hung an old barn lock that we had been using for 15 years, no less. I looked around. No one saw. And who cares about a middle-aged woman cleaning her own garage? When I returned to the house, the first thing I did was go to the phone. 3 missed calls. I did not call back. Then I took a shower, washing off the dust of the garage and the smell of betrayal for a long time and thoroughly. I stood under the hot streams until my skin turned red. I watched the dirty water flow down the drain and thought, that's how my years, my youth, my love have gone. In. I changed into clean clothes. A floral bathrobe, slippers with pom-poms, a gift for Lenka on March 8th. I put the kettle on, made strong tea in my favorite mug. Outside the window, children were screaming, returning from school. Dogs were barking. A tractor rumbled. Ordinary life in our small town. The trill rang out on the phone again. This time I picked up. Tube. It was Vasily. Tanya, how are you? The voice is cheerful, even cheerful. Don't you miss me? It's fine, I replied evenly. Voice. I do cleaning. Well done, my mistress. Noise and voices were heard in the receiver. Someone laughed. The bite here is excellent. I'll be there tomorrow evening. I'll bring fish. Okay, I said. Well, come on, see you tomorrow. And he passed out without waiting for an answer. I looked at, silent pipe, and thought, if only you knew, fisherman, what I have prepared for you. If only you knew. In the evening, I cooked dinner as usual. I stewed potatoes with meat, as Vasya likes. I washed the laundry and hung it up. On the balcony, I watered the flowers on the windowsill, violets, geraniums, kalanchoe. The usual movements calmed me down. A plan slowly matured in his head. We'll see, I thought, sorting through the jars of last year's jam, arranging them by variety. Let's see what happens next. At night, I could not sleep for a long time. I was lying, looking at the ceiling, remembering how happy Vasya and I were once. First, years of marriage, the birth of children, trips to the sea, holidays with friends, when everything changed, when we became strangers. Each other. And who is that other? Do I know her? Have you ever seen it on the streets of our small town? I fell asleep in the morning, dreamed of something alarming. I was running through the forest, and a huge pike with Vasya's face was chasing me, and condoms were waving like flags on it. Vasily returned from fishing the next day, in the late afternoon. I heard his 9 in the yard, and, mechanically, she straightened her hair, tied a fresh apron. 23 years of marriage, but I still want to look decent in front of my husband. Habit. He went into the house, noisy, smelling of fire and river freshness. I brought a whole package of fish, bream, a couple of large perches. The eyes are shining, the cheeks are flushed immediately. Apparently, the man rested. Tanya, my mistress, he tried to hug me, but I deftly dodged, referring to my dirty hands. I needed the dough for pies. Put the fish in a basin, I'll clean it later, I said in an even voice. Will you have dinner or wash first? Vasily with. He looked at me in surprise, but said nothing, only shrugged his shoulders. Like, what can you take from a woman? Her mood changes more often than the weather in April. After dinner, he talked for a long time about fishing. Who caught how much, how the fire was lit, how Petrovich, his boss. At work, I almost fell into the water, having sorted out moonshine. I listened half-heartedly, nodding in the right places. Earlier, I was indignant because of moonshine, and now what's the difference? That night, Vasya tried to hug me in bed, but I referred to headache. She lay with her back to the wall and listened to him sniffle, gradually falling asleep, and she thought about those pierced condoms in the garage and what would happen next. Ordinary days dragged on. Vasya at work. He is a foreman at a furniture factory. I'm doing the housework. I began to prepare the garden for planting. I jumped up the beds. I brought manure. Neighbor Zenaida Petrovna was still surprised. Where does the strength come from? And I just smiled back. Not. Tell her that every movement of the shovel I imagine how I beat Povasya's mistress. About a week later. After my find, I noticed the first changes. Vasily began to stay late at work more often, either a briefing or an urgent order or a meeting with a client. In the past, he always. He warned if he was late, and now he could just call half an hour before the end of the working day. Tanya, don't wait. Me, Kuzhina, case, and disconnect without waiting for a response. Your mobile phone, recently bought, expensive. I spent half of my vacation pay on him. I began to keep it with me. He even took it to the bathroom with him. I've never done this before. He will leave where he has to, and that's it. And now as a tethered one. One Sunday morning, when Vasya was still asleep, I quietly took his phone, twisted in my hands, trying to figure out how to turn it on. Vasya woke up at that moment, saw me with the phone, and jumped up as if scalded. "What are you doing?" he asked. He snatched the receiver from my hands. "Yes, I wanted to call Linka," I lied. "And to ask, couldn't you?" he muttered and went to the bathroom. With a phone, of course. That day he suddenly got ready to see Petrovich, to the country to help with the greenhouse. I left for the whole day, returned late in the evening. He smelled of eau cologne. Not his usual chypre, but some other Swedish one. I pretended not to notice. He began to visit the garage more often. Either he polishes the car before the weekend or fixes something. I locked myself there for an hour and a half. I looked in once. It seems that he is messing with the car, but my gaze immediately darted to the top, shelf where the box stood. Is it still there? In situ. Once, when Vasya went to the district center for spare parts, I checked the garage again. The stash with cognac was in place, but in the toolbox I found only one. A pack of condoms instead of 3. 2 disappeared, so they came in handy. The thought made my stomach cringe, but I restrained myself. The time for tears has not yet come. I began to look closely at his shirts. Once I found long blonde hair on the collar. My hair was dark with gray already, and this one was blonde, almost golden. She looked at it in the light, winding it around her finger. "Whose are you, hair? Who do you belong to? In our small town, everyone knows each other." I mentally went through all the women I knew of the right age. Saleswoman Svetka, from the household. It seems that my Vasily is not to her taste. She looks more at young people, an accountant from the Ninka factory. Maybe she always hangs around men. Or a new designer like her, Marina. She came from the regional center, curvy, fashionable. I began to look more closely at the women in the city. When I went to store or post office, peered into the faces of people she met, trying to guess whether she was or not. Is it nervously looking away or so? Blushes at the mention of a furniture factory, like some kind of detective, honestly. At home, I tried to behave. As usual, Vasya cooked his favorite dishes, washed his shirts, kept up a conversation at dinner, asked about work, about orders. He perked up, talked about some new customers from the regional center, about how the factory expands as if there was no cold wall between us. In bed, we almost did not get closer. If Vasily tried, I found reasons to refuse. Either my head hurts, or my blood pressure jumps, or I am just tired. He sighed, turned away, and I lay with my eyes open in the darkness and imagined him hugging another. The one with brown hair. May turned into June. Apple trees bloomed in our garden, then crumbled. I swirled the first jam from strawberries which she grew in the beds behind the house. I didn't put it in a jar. I just poured it in a vase for the first time. Vasily loved my jam. He said that no one had such a delicious one. Now he ate in silence without the former enthusiasm. I noticed how he was changing. He became nervous and twitchy. He often looked at his watch, checked his phone. Sometimes I caught it on myself, his strange gaze, as if studying, evaluating. Maybe he compared it with that other. One day in mid-June, I washed his work trousers and found a check in his pocket from the Café Lilac in the regional center. We went there only a couple of times. Special occasions. Dearly. And here, an ordinary Tuesday is not a holiday, not a birthday, and the amount is decent. For 2, no less. Vasya said that day that they had a presentation of a new collection of furniture for customers. Check me. I left it in a prominent place on his bedside table. Returning from work, Vasya noticed him, quickly grabbed him and thrust him into the pocket. The whole evening was tense, fussing, trying to be especially attentive. He even offered to go to the market in the district center on the weekend. It's been a long time, they say, that you, Tanya, haven't bought anything for yourself. first I smiled and agreed. In her heart she rejoiced. The little one twitched, felt that I suspected something. The next day I called the factory and asked Vasya. The secretary said that he had gone to the warehouse and would be back in the afternoon. I thanked her and hung up, and then I dialed Linka, our daughter. Daughter, I said, diligently giving my voice a carefree feel, could you give me a number? Should I give this phone to Maureen from the factory? She seems to sew curtains to order, and I just need new ones for the kitchen. Lenka. I was surprised, but I gave the number. Marina really earned money with curtains and bedspreads. Lenka ordered from her inn, nursery for Masha. I didn't call right away. I waited for a day, replaying in my head what I would say, and then I typed, number. Hello, replied a woman's voice, young sonorous. Hello, Marina. This is Tatiana, Vasili's wife from the furniture factory. The pause on the other end was so long and eloquent that all doubts disappeared by themselves. Yes, hello, she finally said in a hoarse voice. As much as I can. Help? What should I order? I continued casually. My daughter Elena praised your work very much. You now have time for a new order. Another pause. I'm almost. I saw her rushing about, not knowing what to answer. Yes, of course, she said at last. When it is convenient for you to drive up. You can look at fabric samples. Maybe today, I suggested at 3 o'clock. She hesitated. It won't work today. I'll be in the warehouse, she said hurriedly. Let's do it tomorrow. In the warehouse, then, I thought. Where Vasya is now, according to the secretary. Okay, let's do it tomorrow, I agreed. Write down the address. I dictated our address to her, agreed on 11 a.m. and hung up. His hands did not tremble, his voice. It was smooth, but everything turned upside down inside. Here she was, a lovebird, young, beautiful, with brown hair. Only in the warehouse today she does not choose fabrics, but with mine. She spends time with her husband. In the evening, Vasya returned late, tired, but somehow lively. He said that he had been running errands all day, looking for new orders. I nodded, put my dinner plate in front of him, and, by the way, I noticed. And I'll order curtains tomorrow. That girl will come, a designer from your factory. Marina, Seam. Vasya choked on his tea and coughed. I calmly patted him on the back. Do you know her? I asked. They say she makes good curtains. Yes, so, he squeezed out casually, diligently not, looking into my eyes. Recently he has been working with us. We haven't really communicated. You're lying, I thought. Oh, you're lying. Well, let's get to know each other better, I smiled. I've been wanting to renovate the kitchen for a long time. All evening Vasya was not himself. Then he watched TV. Then he went out to smoke again, although he had already quit twice. Then he splashed in the bathroom. And before going to bed, he whispered for a long time with someone on the phone in the hallway. I pretended not to hear. In the morning, he got up earlier than usual, had a hasty breakfast, and sped off to work, saying that it was an important meeting with suppliers. Of course, it is important. He must warn his mistress not to come to his wife's house. I did not expect that Marina coming, and indeed, at 11 a.m., no one rang the doorbell. I grinned, poured myself some tea, and sat down by the window. The plan is ripe. Finally, now I knew who I was dealing with. She knew her rival's name and where she worked. There is more left to do. Patience and wait. Wait for the punctured condoms to do their job. In the evening, Vasya inquired as if he were not asking, Well, did your seamstress come? No, I replied calmly. I'll call her one of these days. I'll ask you again. Vasily noticeably relaxed and even offered to watch some comedy on TV together. I agreed. We sat next to each other on the sofa, laughing at jokes from the screen. From the outside, an ordinary married couple, only I felt how. His phone in his shirt pocket vibrated with incoming messages, and he pretended not to notice. June slowly flowed into July. The heat was unbearable. The asphalt was melting under our feet. I was engaged in the garden. I canned the first vegetables, received guests. Lenka came with her husband and Masha for a week. In the hustle and bustle, my quiet war with my husband was somehow postponed. Vasily, in the presence of his daughter and granddaughter, was the very care and attention. He played with Masha, helped his son-in-law with the car, fried, barbecue in the yard. Looking at him, no one would say that this person leads a double life. When the children left, that's it. Return to normal. Vasya began to linger again, disappearing on weekends on his own business. He did not let the phone out of his hands. And I waited, watched. She was accumulating strength before the storm that was sure to break out. At the end of July, sorting out the laundry. For laundry, I found a small receipt from the pharmacy in the pocket of his shirt. Pregnancy test. My heart pounded. Is it? Is it really that fast? In the evening, as if in passing, I asked, Vasya, have you thought about going fishing again with men? I haven't been out for a long time. He looked at me in surprise. Why did you suddenly start talking about fishing? Before, she didn't seem to like it when I left. I shrugged my shoulders. Yes, I see how you have been spinning lately. Tired, I guess. I would have rested with friends, unwinded. Vasily squinted suspiciously, but said nothing. And the next. The day itself started a conversation about fishing. Like, Petrovich is going to go to the weekend or what? Of course, go with. I'll bake pies with me. He left on Saturday morning, and I barely closed the door behind him, took out my phone book and dialed the number. Marina, this is Tatiana again. About the curtains. I knew she probably already knew who I was, but I decided to keep the game. To the end. To my surprise, she agreed to meet. He wants to see his opponent, I thought. Well, I was curious too. We agreed to meet at cafe in the city center, neutral territory, a lot of people around. I put on my best summer sundress, did my hair, even made up my lips. I haven't dressed up like this for a long time. She came exactly at the appointed time. Young, about 30 years old, lined with shoulder-length brown hair, in a fashionable dress with heels. Beautiful, damn it, 15 years younger than me, no less. I waved my hand to her, and she hesitated to go to my table. There is wariness in the eyes, but also curiosity. Hello, she said, sitting down across from her. You wanted to talk about curtains? Not only, but let's order something first. We took coffee and cake. I deliberately stalled for time, questioning her. About work? About fabrics? About design? She answered warily, but gradually relaxed. I even began to show photos of my work on my phone. Beautiful, I sincerely praised. She smiled sheepishly. Thank you. It's more of a hobby than a job. At the factory, I'm on a different part. I know, I nodded. Vasily told. At the mention of her husband's name, she shuddered and averted her eyes. Yes, I work with sketches of new models. There was a pause. I drank coffee and made up my mind. Marina, do you sleep with my husband? It was not a question. Assertion. She turned pale, then blushed. The fingers holding the cup trembled. I stammered, not knowing what to say. Don't deny it, I continued calmly. For several months now. I found condoms in the garage back in April. She put the cup on the saucer with this. A few drops of coffee splashed onto the tablecloth. Why did you call me? She asked quietly. Make a scene? Scold? I shook my head. No, I just wanted to see you, to understand what to understand. She nervously fiddled with a napkin. Do you love him? I said simply. Marina looked up at me, large, gray, with long eyelashes, beautiful eyes. I love him, she said, firmly, and he loves me. We're going to be together. I grinned. Did he say so? Yes. She lifted her chin defiantly. He wants to divorce you. He is just looking for the right moment. Well, of course, I thought. And how long have you been together? I asked, stirring cooled coffee. Since February, she replied after a pause. I came to the factory in January, and in February we did. Got it, I interrupted her. Did you know that we have 2 children and a granddaughter of 23 years of marriage? She lowered her eyes. I know, but your children are already adults. And I'm 32, and I want my family, my children. 32, I noted to myself. And she looks younger and wants children. Well, perhaps her wish will soon come true. What are you going to do? Asked Marina, looking me straight in the eyes. I slowly finished my coffee, dabbed my lips with a napkin, and smiled. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I just wanted to know who I was dealing with. She looked at me incredulously. You will let him go. So, simply, if he wants to leave, I won't keep him, I replied calmly. You can't force love, right? Marina is clearly not. I expected such a reaction. She flapped her beautiful eyes in confusion, not knowing what to say. I paid for coffee, took her purse, and got up. Well, it was nice to meet you. I wish you good luck. I left, leaving her completely confused. I was walking down the street and smiling. Everything turned out exactly as I planned. Love, the desire to start a family, dreams of children, and pierced condoms in a drawer in the garage. We'll see, I thought. Returning home, let's see what happens next. You're an amazing woman, Tanya, he said, standing on the threshold with a suitcase in the hands. The other one would be in your place. After meeting Marina, something changed. Not in me, in Vasily. He became more attentive, brought flowers for no reason, offered to go to the cinema or go to the weekend in the regional center, as if he felt something was wrong and tried to make amends. Or maybe she is for him. Told you about our conversation? She hinted that I knew everything. I accepted his courtship with icy calm, not. She pushed me away but did not show much enthusiasm either. I put the flowers in a vase, thanked them for their attention, and continued. Live your own life. Preparations for the winter, cleaning the house, evening gatherings with neighbors on a bench at the entrance. Ordinary, things that occupied my days. And at night, I listened to his breathing and thought about the punctured condoms. Will they work? And what will I do if they work? In mid-August, Vasya took a week's vacation. Said he wanted to. Go fishing far away, to the Don, with former classmates. I just shrugged my shoulders. Go. I saw her off, packed her bag, put a first aid kit, a thermos. He left in an old 9, and the next day I went to my daughter in a neighboring city. To visit my granddaughter. To ventilate. To distract yourself from heavy thoughts. Lenka, looking at me, kept trying to find out if anything had happened. Jetty, you look strange. Mom is kind of extinguished. I waved it off. Age, daughter, years do not beautify, but she, sensitive, still felt that something was wrong. Dad, how? She asked for. Evening tea. Everything still disappears at work. As always, I answered evasively. Now I've gone fishing. Fishing? She raised her eyebrows in surprise. And he called me, saying that he was going on a business trip to Voronezh. My heart trembled, but outwardly I remained calm. Maybe I mixed it up, I said. Time fails memory. She looked at me attentively, but did not elaborate on the topic. I just hugged him tightly goodbye and asked to call more often. When I returned home 3 days later, I found that Vasya had already arrived, tanned, some kind of enlightened. He was bustling in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Tanya, he was delighted. And I'm waiting for you, waiting for you. The soup was cooked by your favorite. With meatballs. I silently went into the room, sorted out the bag. For some reason, it was disgusting to look at his ostentatious solicitude, like a fake coin in his hands. It seems to shine, but its price is a penny. How did you go? I asked at dinner. At least he caught a fish. Why, he's diligently averted his gaze. Almost all the time it was raining, we sat in tents. But we had a heartfelt conversation with the men, remembered. Youth. Interesting, I thought, looking at his lying smile. It was also raining in Voronezh, or there Marina shone the sun for him. September came imperceptibly. It rained, it got colder. I harvested the last harvest from the garden, rolled up dozens of jars of reindeer and jam. Vasily plunged into work again. End of quarter, reports, new orders. He came late, tired, but satisfied. More and more often, began to talk about the prospects, about the expansion of production, about the fact that it may be necessary to go to Moscow for furniture exhibition. And I waited, just waited for the thunder to strike, and it struck in October. On one dank Sunday, when we were going to visit my mother in a neighboring village, Vasily suddenly said that he was not feeling well and was not going anywhere. Going. I went alone. When I returned in the evening, I found him with red eyes from lack of sleep. He was sitting in the kitchen, holding his head in his hands. There was an empty glass in front of him. What's wrong? I asked, taking off my coat. Nothing, he muttered. He was just tired, but it was clear from his appearance that something had happened, something serious. That night he tossed and turned, could not sleep. I heard him go out on the balcony to smoke, although he promised to quit. Then I talked to someone on the phone for a long time, quietly, almost in a whisper, so that I wouldn't hear. But in a small apartment, the whispers echo, and I made out some phrases. Can't it be? Are you sure? We need to think about it. Everything inside froze. Is it? In the morning, seeing him off to work, I casually said, Vasya, are you all right? You don't look well. He pulled. Shoulder. Everything is fine. It's just that the project is complex. My head is spinning. Maybe you should go to the doctor? I did not calm down. Blood pressure. Check? I don't have time to go to the doctor's. He snapped back and, grabbing his briefcase, jumped out the door. On that day, I decided to clean up his desk, an old writing desk that I had inherited from my father-in-law. I pulled out the drawers, shifted the papers, and found what I was looking for, although I did not even know that I was looking for a receipt from the women's room. Consultations of the regional center, paid admission, ultrasound, tests. Date, day before yesterday. The patient's name was smeared with a pen, but the first letter was clearly readable. M. Marina. There are no doubts left. She is pregnant, and Vasya knows about it. Then everything spun like in a kaleidoscope. Vasily began to come later, often with the smell of alcohol. He drooped. Shadows lay under his eyes. To my questions. He answered monosyllabically, waved it off, and I pretended not to notice anything. She cooked dinner, cleaned the house, watched TV with him in the evenings, as if nothing had happened. At the end of October, For the first time, I did not spend the night at home. He called late at night and said that he would be late at work. There will be an inventory. Better to spend the night at Petrovich's than to shake in the last bus. I calmly agreed, and I sat at the house all night, windows, looking at the rainy street, and thought that soon everything would change. In the morning he came crumpled, with guilty eyes. He brought me a box of chocolates and a bouquet of chrysanthemums. I put the flowers in a vase, thanked them for the sweets, and continued to prepare breakfast as if nothing unusual had happened. You don't ask where I've been? He said suddenly, looking at my back. And it should. I turned around, holding a pan of scrambled eggs in my hands. You said at Petrovich's. I believe you. He shuddered. He averted his eyes. I saw how the cheekbones walked, how he squeezed and unclenched his fists under the table. Fights with himself, decides to say something. Tanya, we need to talk, he finally said. Of course, I put a plate of scrambled eggs in front of him, poured tea. After breakfast, he nodded, staring at his plate. There are not. I did, only drank tea in small sips. After breakfast, we sat down in the living room. I am on the couch. He is in the chair opposite, as if at an official meeting. Tanya, I don't know how to say it, he began, fiddling with the button on his shirt. Tell it like it is, I replied calmly, although his heart was pounding somewhere in his throat. He took a deep breath and blurted out, I've met another woman and she's waiting for me. Child. I was silent, looking at him. He licked his lips nervously and continued, I didn't want that to happen. We are. Protection, but in general, she is in the 3rd month and wants to leave it. Do you want that too? I asked quietly. He shrugged his shoulders. I do not know. It's all so unexpected. I'm 51, Tanya. I thought there would be no more children. Do you love her here? I asked the main question. Vasily lowered his head. I don't know. She is young and beautiful. It's different with her, but so many years with you. So you're not sure? I stated. Yes, he admitted. I'm confused. I got up and went to the window. It was drizzling outside the glass. Flying trees, swayed under the gusts of wind. The dank autumn is as gray as my life. What are you going to do? I asked without turning around. I don't know. These 2 words again. She wants me to go to her. He says that the child needs a father. How about you? And he hesitated. I'm not ready to destroy our family, Tanya. 23 years after all. I grinned. He is not ready to destroy the family and to warm someone else's bed. That's fine. Does she know you're married? I asked, though. The answer was obvious. Yes, I knew from the beginning and contacted you anyway. A smart woman. He ignored the sarcasm. She says that she loves me, that she will wait as long as it takes as her. Name? Vasily hesitated. Is this important to me? Yes, Marina, he said reluctantly. She works at our factory as a designer. I nodded, as if I had heard this name for the first time. And what's next? I don't know, he repeated for the third time. I need time to think, to understand myself. Think. I returned to the sofa, sat up straight, straightening my shoulders. Just keep in mind, if you decide to leave, there will be no turning back. He looked up at me in surprise. Will you let me go just like that? Do you want me to throw a tantrum? I asked. Be quiet. Did she break dishes, tear her hair, beg her to stay? No, but it won't be, I snapped. You're an adult. He looked at me with a new expression, either respect or confusion. Thank you for your understanding, he finally said. I'll think about it. Think about it, I nodded. And I'll go to the market. There should be fresh fish there today. And I left, leaving him in the complete bewilderment. She walked down the street, lifting the collar of her coat, and smiled. Let her think that I am so calm and generous. Let him rack his brains. Why didn't I make a scandal? My revenge has just begun, and it will be as cold as this October frost outside the window. The next week, Vasily seemed to sit on pins and needles, twitching, nervous. He constantly called somewhere, whispered to someone, often did not spend the night at home, making excuses for business trips and urgent orders. I did not object, did not quarrel. I just marked the days of his absence in the calendar. Once, in early November, I was returning from the store and saw them, Vasya and Marina. They were standing near the pharmacy, talking intensely about something. She was arguing for something. Waving her arms, he frowned and shook his head. At some point, she grabbed her stomach with a characteristic pregnant gesture. I quickly turned the corner so they wouldn't notice me. On the next day, when Vasya was getting ready for work, I casually asked, Is this your Marina? She is definitely pregnant. From you? He froze with an untied tie. What kind of question? Usual, I shrugged my shoulders. You've protected yourself, as you said. Maybe she was dating someone else? No, he snapped. This is my child. She did a paternity test. What test is in the 3rd month? This is done later after birth. Got it. And what have you decided? He averted his eyes. So far, nothing. But she needs money for vitamins for observation by. Doctor, I will help. Noble, I remarked. He looked at me angrily. Not at all, really. I think that it is noble to help a pregnant woman, even if you are not sure that the child is yours. I'm sure, he almost screamed. And in general, stop this interrogation. I'm already on edge. Okay. I raised my hands conciliatorily. Go to work, you'll be late. He left, slamming the door, and I sat down at the table and I wrote 2 letters to my daughter and son about the fact that my father and I have problems, that he may leave the family without going into the details, just warning them not to come as a shock if anything. In December, before the new year, Vasily collected things and moved in with Marina. He said that she needed help, toxicosis, weakness. Doctors prescribed bed rest. And in general, it is wrong if a pregnant woman is alone. I nodded, helped to pack my suitcase, even his favorite sweater. I put it down, which I knitted myself 2 years ago. You are an amazing woman, Tanya, he said, standing on the threshold with a suitcase. In your hands, someone else would be in your place. I'm not different, I interrupted him. I am me. Go already, she's waiting. He left, and the apartment became quiet. I turned on the TV so as not to hear the silence. On the screen, commercials flickered. The announcers were talking about the upcoming holiday, and I was sitting in an armchair drinking tea and thinking, New year, new life. Now everything will definitely be different. I celebrated the new year alone. The children called me to them, but I refused. She said that she had a cold and did not want to infect anyone. In fact, I just wanted to be in silence, to think, to comprehend what had happened. And I was not ready to answer their questions about where Dad was and why we were not together on the holiday. Vasily called at midnight and congratulated Komkan awkwardly. The voice is muffled. Apparently he went into another room so that Marina could not hear. He asked how I was, if I missed him. I replied that everything was fine, that the children called, that the neighbor Zenaida Petrovna. I came in with a pie. He was silent for a while, then said that he would come in a couple of days to pick up warm clothes. It's cold in his apartment, and Marina can't freeze. Of course, when I arrived, I agreed. And don't forget the winter jacket that I gave you for your last birthday. It is in closet. After the conversation, I turned off the garland on the Christmas tree, which I put more out of habit than for the mood, and went to bed. She was lying in the dark, listening to the sounds of firecrackers outside the window, to the laughter and shouts of the revelers. The first new year without a husband in 23 years. It's a strange feeling. Vasily arrived on January 2nd, as promised, brought a box of chocolates and a bottle of champagne, as if we were with. They are still a family, we just temporarily live separately. I accepted the gifts, offered tea. He agreed, went to the kitchen, and sat down in his usual place by the window. It was strange to see him so dear, and at the same time a stranger. "How are you? Here?" he asked, looking around the kitchen as if looking for a change. "It's okay. I put the kettle on. And how are you?" "It's okay, too." "Marina, it's only hard for her. Toxicosis is strong. He hardly eats anything. The doctor says that this is no longer normal for the 6th month." I silently sliced the pie I had baked the day before. "The pie is like an apple and cinnamon pie. Vasin's beloved Tanyusha, suddenly," he said, looking at my back. "Forgive me, but I didn't want it to happen like that. Somehow nothing by itself happens. Vasya," I turned around, holding a saucer with a pie in my hands. "You have made a choice. Now live with him." "What choice?" He grimaced. "Do you think I wanted to start all over again at the age of 50? Yes. I don't sleep at night. I keep thinking how it happened." "Protected yourself, right?" I almost laughed in his face. "We protected ourselves with punctured condoms from the garage. I can see fate," I said instead. "So a child must be born. You've always dreamed of a son, remember? Mishka grew up and you kept talking. Oh, if only I had a son." He rubbed his face with his palms. "Yes, I dreamed, of course, but not like this. Not in such circumstances. You created the circumstances yourself," I reminded. Vasya quickly finished his tea, collected his things from the closet, and I got ready to go back. On the threshold, he suddenly turned around. "Listen, can I take this aluminum saucepan of yours? Well, for milk porridge, which? Marina wants to learn how to cook semolina. He says it will be useful for the child." I silently took a saucepan out of the kitchen cabinet, old, with a worn handle, but ideal for dairy dishes. "Here," I handed it to him, "and take a special cook for porridge." He nodded gratefully, awkwardly thrust the saucepan into the bag with his things, and left. And I stood at the window and watched him get into the car, how he drove away from the house with a saucepan for semolina. After the new year, life flowed in a new way. I realized that sitting within 4 walls and looking out the window is not variant. I got a job in the district library 3 days a week as a junior librarian. They paid pennies, but I liked to go through books, talk to readers, be among people. Children came in turns, first Lenka with her husband and Masha, then Mishka for a couple of days. They asked questions carefully. They were afraid. "Upset," I answered sparingly. "Like it so happened, my father has a different family. Now the child will be born soon." They rocked. With their heads, sympathized, offered help. Lenka even invited me to move to her place, but I refused. "Your own apartment, your own corner. It may be small, but it is mine." The winter turned out to be snowy and frosty. I went to work, then to the store, then home. On weekends, I met with friends. I don't have many of them, but surely they have been tested over the years. We drank tea, discussed news, TV series, recipes. I tried not to tell Vasya, but sometimes I still broke through. "Don't give a damn about him, Tanya." My school friend Nina was excited. "I found someone to suffer for." The gray-haired snarl ran to the young woman. "Such stories are a dime a dozen." "I don't suffer," I shrugged my shoulders. "It's just unusual to be alone. So many years together." Nevertheless, but I didn't really suffer. There was emptiness inside and some kind of cold expectation. I knew it wasn't. The end of the story, that everything is still ahead. In February, Vasily called and said that he needed to pick up some documents from at home. Insurance policy, medical card. I allowed him to come on the weekend, and here he was again on the threshold, thinner, haggard, with shadows under his eyes. Come in, I said. Will you? He shook his head. No, I won't be for long. There are still things to do. I shrugged my shoulders. Up to you. While he was digging through the drawers of his desk, I silently watched. Neem from the kitchen. Finally, I decided to ask, how is Marina? Like a child? He shuddered as if from a blow. That's all right. In April, she must give birth. Boy or girl? Boy. He did not look up from the papers. Ultrasound showed. Congratulations, I said. Son, this is good. Have you already chosen a name? Vasily finally looked at me with a kind of mixed expression of surprise and gratitude. Cyril. She wants to call him Kirill. A beautiful name, I nodded. He finally found the necessary documents and put them in a folder. Tanya, he began uncertainly. There is such a thing there. You see, Marina and I want to get married. Before childbirth, I felt something tremble inside me. Not from pain, from the realization that everything becomes real, final. I see, I said in an even voice. And well, we should get a divorce. He was completely embarrassed. Officially. Okay. I nodded. File for divorce. I will not interfere. He breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you. I knew you. Understand. Just decide on the apartment, I added. What alimony? He. His eyes widened. The children are already adults. I have devoted 23 years to the house, not a career. I built, and now I have a salary. The cat cried. Retirement is not coming soon, so think about it. His face darkened, but I did not argue. He only muttered that he himself could barely make ends meet. Marina is on maternity leave. All hope is on him. No problem. Let's break through. I patted him on the shoulder like an old friend. Life goes on. After he left, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, looking out the window at the February snowstorm. April is coming soon. Childbirth is coming soon. I wonder how his life will change with the birth of a baby, with sleepless nights, diapers, childhood diseases. At 51 years old, this is no longer a joke. My thoughts were interrupted by a phone call. Lenka called. Mom, why didn't you hang up for so long? Take, she hurried. I have already begun to worry, my daughter is thinking. I smiled, introducing her. Concerned person. What happened? Yes, Dad called. Her voice became strained. Said they were with this one. They want to get married to Marina. And what will I have a brother? I know, I replied calmly. He was just here picking up documents. And how are you, Mom? Is it okay, Lenochka? Life goes on. You're so strong. There was admiration in her voice. I probably wouldn't have been able to do that, I grinned. After talking to my daughter, I decided, walk. The snow stopped. The sun came out. I dressed warmly and went out into the yard. Neighbor Zinaida Petrovna cleaned. Path at the entrance. When she saw me, she waved her hand. Tanya, hello. Have you heard the news? At the furniture factory, there are cuts. They say there are few orders. There is no money. My niece works there, in the accounting department. That's what she says. Half of the workshop was put under the knife. I stopped. What are you talking about? And my Vasya, that is, my ex, did not say anything, so they don't touch the masters. Yet, she explained. A neighbor, leaning on a shovel. But the mood there is anxious. It is not known what will happen next. I thanked him for the news and moved on. It turns out interesting. Vasily will soon have a child, a new family, and there are problems at work. How will he get out of it? In March, we officially divorced, quickly, without further ado. I did not demand large alimony. 1/3 of his salary is due by law. The apartment was divided. 2/3 to me, 1/3 to him. He can sell his share and I will buy it back when there is money. And so it was decided. After the divorce, Vasily did not appear again. Apparently he took all the necessary things. He only called, sometimes asked how I was, if there was anything to fix around the house. I replied that everything was fine, I was coping. He sighed and quickly said goodbye, and then April came, the very month when his son from Marina was to be born. I was waiting for this moment with a strange feeling. Not schadenfreude, no, rather curiosity. What will happen next? And then one evening, when I was about to go to bed, the doorbell rang. Vasily stood on the threshold, pale, disheveled, with a wild look. "Tanya," he wheezed. "Crossing the threshold, I need to talk to you." I silently led him into the apartment. He went into the kitchen. It was hard. He sank into a chair and put his head in his hands. "What happened?" I asked, although I already guessed. "Marina gave birth," he said in a muffled voice. "Yesterday, I congratulate the boy," I said. "Cyril, as they wanted, yes." He nodded without raising his head. "Tanya, there's such a thing. In general, a child. It is not white." "In what sense?" I pretended. "That I don't understand." "Well, dark-skinned, very dark-skinned, with dark hair and eyes. In general, he does not look like me at all. She was silent, giving him a chance to speak. "I asked Marina," he continued, finally raising himself to me. Exhausted eyes. "And she says that this is my son, that he was with no one but me, that they say she has Caucasians in her family. There were, so it manifested. And you don't believe it?" I asked quietly. "I don't know," he shook his head. "It's just so strange. I have always been blonde. In my youth, I generally walked blonde, and there was no one dark in my family. And here is genetics. It's a complicated thing, I noticed." Maybe he didn't look convinced, but I still doubt it. What if she was with someone else? Moreover, we protected ourselves. I turned to the window to hide my smile. "Now it has happened. What are you going to do now?" I asked, when she was able to speak calmly again. He threw up his hands. "I don't know. She demands that I register the child for myself in order to." He gave his last name. "And I want to do a DNA test first to be sure. And if the test shows that it is not yours," then he stammered, "then I don't know. I'll probably leave." "Where to?" I asked directly. "I know," he repeated it for the third time. "Maybe you can let me in for a while, until I figure out what's next." I'm slow. Shook her head. "No, Vasya, this will not happen. You've chosen your own path. Now follow it to the end." "But Tanya, no," firmly. "Solve your problems yourself. I'm not an alternate airfield for you." He drooped, hunched over in his chair. "I see it," he muttered. "You're right, of course." After finishing his tea, he left. Panuri, who has aged by 10 years during these months, and I was standing at the window and looked after him. It was empty and calm inside. I knew that this was only the beginning, that the denouement was still ahead. After, on that evening visit, Vasily disappeared for 2 weeks, did not call, did not come in. I didn't look for contact with him. I just lived my life. I went to work in the library, tinkered with seedlings on the windowsill, prepared for the summer season. Spring in that. The year turned out to be earlier, warm. I wanted to get out of the city as soon as possible, dig in the ground, plant, weed, breathe fresh air. From mutual acquaintances, I learned that Vasily did a DNA test in secret from Marina through some private laboratory in the regional center. The results were promised in 10 days. He waited, was nervous, almost did not appear at home, spent the night with friends, with Petrovich, anywhere, but not with Marina and the newborn. Things were getting worse and worse at the factory. Zinaida Petrovna told me the latest news. Layoffs continued, wages were delayed, there was even talk of possible bankruptcy. What did I do in such a situation? Vasily, I didn't know, but I guessed that it was not easy for him. A new family, a child, albeit with dubious paternity, and then there are problems at work. At the beginning of May, when I was already in full swing, I was engaged in the garden at the dacha. The phone rang. "A man's voice is unfamiliar?" he asked Tatiana Ivanovna, his ex-wife. "Basil?" "Yes, it's me," I replied warily. "And who are you?" "My name is Arsen," the caller introduced himself with a slight accent. "I need to meet you. This applies to Marina and her child." My heart skipped a beat. Here it is, the denouement. "Okay," I agreed. "Where and when?" We agreed to meet in a small cafe on the outskirts of the city. Neutral territory. Not crowded. He came. Exactly at the appointed time. Tall, dark-skinned, with thick black hair and glowing eyes. 30 years old, not. More. Stylishly dressed, self-confident, not at all like our provincial resident. Tatyana Ivanovna. He held out his hand to me. Thank you for agreeing to meet. We sat down at a table in the corner. I ordered tea. He ordered coffee. So, what did you want to talk about? I asked when the waitress left. Arsène put his elbows on the table and leaned forward. I am the father of Marina's child. I pretended to be surprised, although inwardly I was ready for it. Here's how. And she says that her father is my ex-husband. I know, he nodded grimly. She's lying. Marina and I have been dating since last fall. I'm a businessman from Grozny. I supply furniture fittings to your city. They met at the factory where she works. If you met in the fall, then the child cannot be yours, said. Marina became pregnant in the spring. Arsène smiled bitterly. That's what she told your husband. In fact, there was a deadline, less. She just guessed to make everything look believable. What for? I asked bluntly. Why would she deceive Vasily? Money, he replied simply. Stability. I am a human, a visitor, often on the move. Is your husband a local? The situation at the factory is good. There is an apartment. It was, I corrected. He has only a third of the apartment which he is going to sell. Exactly, Arsène nodded. When Marina and I became close, she was already having an affair with your husband. She said that everything was not serious, just entertainment. He hesitated, choosing his words. Then she said that she was pregnant from me. I was happy, proposed marriage, and she refused. Like, I'm Caucasian, different cultures, her parents won't understand. I insisted, but she was adamant, and then suddenly announced that she was pregnant with your husband and will be with him. I listened without interrupting. The story looked confusing, but quite plausible. Why did you decide to tell me everything? I asked when he finished. Because my son is there with her, his eyes sparkled, and I want to be a father to my child. I want to give him my name, my surname. Marina didn't put me on the doorstep. She says that if I don't disappear, she will tell your husband that I am chasing her, threatening her, and I just want to see her son. Are you sure this is your child? I asked cautiously. Absolutely. He didn't hesitate for a second. He is a copy. I'm in infancy. The same eyes, the same skin color, the same hair. My mother sent me my childhood photos. One person, I drank my tea, thinking everything was going perfectly, even better than I could have imagined. What do you want from me? Finally, I asked. Information, he answered. Where is your husband now? What does he know? Did he do the test? The DNA that Marina was talking about? As far as I know, he did the test. I nodded. Does he live now? I don't even know. It seems to be with friends somewhere. He has not lived with Marina since the child was born. Arsène nodded with satisfaction, which means that he also doubts. Naturally, I shrugged my shoulders. The child does not look like him at all. I need to talk to him, Arsène said decisively. Explain the situation? Maybe you know how to find it? I did not have direct contact with Vasily, but I did have his friend's number, Petrovich. I'll try to tell him that you want to meet, I said at last. Give me your phone number. He dictated. I wrote it down. We finished our drinks in silence, everyone thinking about their own. Thank you for the meeting, Tatyana Ivanovna, Arsène said, getting up. I hope we will be able to resolve the situation in a civilized manner. I hope so too, I replied sincerely. After he left, I sat in the cafe for a while, thinking about it. Then she took out the phone and called Petrovich. She explained the situation briefly without unnecessary details. He whistled but promised to tell Vasily that a certain Arsène wanted to meet with him about Marina and the child. Farther. All that remained was to wait and watch how events unfolded. They did not have to wait long. The very next day, Vasily called, agitated, confused. Tanya, did you really talk to some Arsène? He asked without preamble. Yes, I confirmed. Offered to meet. And what did he say? That he is the father of Marina's child, that they dated last fall, and she got pregnant from him and not from you. Vasily exhaled noisily into the receiver. Do you believe him? I don't know, I answered honestly. But he looks a lot like a child, judging by your description. Dark hair, dark skin. I'm meeting him today, Vasya said after a pause. He called. He offered to talk. That's right, I agreed. You have a lot to discuss, and the results of the DNA test will be tomorrow. He added, Then everything will definitely become clear. Good luck, I said. Keep me informed. I hung up the phone and smiled. Everything went on as usual, exactly as I had planned on that April day, piercing condoms in the garage. Further events developed rapidly. The next day, Vasily burst into my apartment, disheveled, with wild eyes, with some paper in his hands. Vite, he shook the paper in front of me. DNA test. I'm not a father. I took the paper carefully. Studied. Indeed, the result was negative. The probability of paternity is less than 0.1%. Do you believe me now? Asked Vasily, pacing nervously around the room. I am not the father of this child. She deceived me. All this time she was lying. I believe it, I replied calmly, returning the document to him. And what are you going to do now? He plopped down on the sofa. Yesterday I met with this arson. He showed me his childhood. Photographs. He is a spitting child. Then we went together to Marina's. At first she denied everything, screamed, cried, and then I showed her the test results and said that I was leaving completely and would not give any more money. Then she freaked out, began to shout that I was an old fool, that she had never loved me, that arson was 100 times better than me. And how did it end? I asked, although I already guessed. I packed my things and left, he just said. And arson stayed. They will now be, to sort things out among themselves. So you are free, I stated. He looked up at me with exhausted eyes. Free and lonely. Tanya, I don't know what to do next. Everything is so confused. It will unravel, I said confidently. He sat a little longer. Said that at the factory. It's too bad that he may have to look for a new job, that he has already paid for the apartment rented for Marina before. At the end of the month, so let him live there with Arsen, if he wants, and he himself will change at Petrovich's, and then we'll see. Will. I listened and thought, this is what has happened. My quiet mess reached the goal. Vasily was exposed, humiliated, abandoned, left without a new family, without a decent job, without his own home, a fugitive, a wanderer. Exactly what I wanted the day I found condoms in the garage, but for some reason there was no joy, only fatigue and some kind of emptiness. Several weeks passed. Summer came, hot and stuffy. I spent most of my time in the country enjoying silence and solitude. Children came, Lenka with her family, then Mishka for the weekend. They helped with the garden, with the repair of the roof on the barn, with a new fence. I looked at them and thought, this is my real wealth. Not Vasily, not marriage, but these adult independent people whom I raised. Different things have come out about Vasily. Rumors that he went to the regional center to look for a job, that he drank out of grief, that he was going to go to the north on a shift. He pays well there. And then, in mid-June, he appeared on the threshold of my dacha, thinner, tanned, in idle work clothes. Hello, Tanya, he said, shifting from foot to foot. I silently stepped back, letting him into the house. He looked around, noticed new curtains, freshly crumbled walls. It became beautiful. He nodded approvingly. Did you do everything yourself? The children helped, I answered, putting the kettle on. Are you going to be in town for a long time? Passing through, he said, sitting down at the table. I'm on. North, I'm going to Surgut. Petrovich's brother lives there. He promised to help the builders with work, dormitory for oil workers. Erect. I see. I nodded. Thank you. He was silent for a moment, then suddenly asked, Did you know, Tanya? But about Marina, about the fact that the child is not mine. I slowly turned to him, guessing. Everything worked out too smoothly for her and too successfully coincided with the timing of your hobby. And he didn't say a word to me, he reproached. Could have warned. What for? I shrugged my shoulders. You wouldn't believe it anyway. I would have thought that. I was speaking out of jealousy, out of resentment. He sighed. You're probably right. I was blinded. I didn't see anything around me except her. We prayed. The kettle boiled. I made tea, took out cookies, jam, like in the good old days. You know, Tanya, he said suddenly, looking out of the window, I often think, what if there were no condoms for this? Pregnancy. If Marina and I had just parted with time, Maybe I would have returned home and you would have forgiven me. This is the moment of truth. I don't know, Vasya, I answered honestly. Maybe I would forgive you. Over time, and now he looked up at me, in which I could read hope. Now everything can still be fixed. I shook my head slowly. No, Vasya, it is no longer possible. Too much has happened. I have changed. You've changed. We are no longer the same people as we used to be. I understand that he lowered his head. I thought so, just wanted to make sure. We finished our tea, talked about the children, about my granddaughter Masha, about my work in the library, an ordinary conversation of exes. Spouses who are connected by a common past, but no longer connected by the present. Before leaving, he suddenly stopped in the doorway. Do you know what's the strangest thing about this story? Condoms. I bought them specifically for Marina, kept them in the garage so you wouldn't find them. And they were intact, I remember exactly. And then suddenly, pregnancy, as if they were defective or someone pierced them. He laughed and shook his head. That's funny. Really? Who would have thought of piercing them? I smiled back without saying a word. Let him leave with his guesses. My secret will stay with me. Have a good trip, Vasya, I said, holding out my hand. Right call. After all, we have been together for 23 years. This is not a joke, for sure. He shook my hand, then suddenly leaned over and kissed me awkwardly on the cheek. Forgive me, Tanya. For everything. Forgive me. And he left, slouching, down the path to the bus stop. And I stood on the porch and,